Good morning. There I am. Hi. Good morning. Celeste Souter here. Welcome to Rise and Shine with Celeste. Y'all, how is it? God is so good. How is it that one verse in Psalms? I mean, I've been like in study for about an hour and a half now, maybe a little bit longer. Just lots of goodness. Lots of goodness coming from this one verse. And it's just amazing to me that it's one verse. Oh, okay. I feel like I can't get this one set over here. That's fine. Again, my name is Celeste Souter. This is Rise and Shine with Celeste. I am going to pray and we're going to get into it. I'm telling you, one verse in Psalms, and it just, I mean, like I went into lots of wow, not just revelation, but it was amazing to me. I love when the word of God like becomes something I don't even know. Like you think it's surface, it's not at all. It's not at all. So, anyways, if you're just popping on, please say hello. If you would rather listen to podcasts, I am on a podcast. It's called Rise and Shine with Celeste. It is not on Apple, but it is available like on Amazon, Podbean, and Spotify, I believe. So, anyways, one of these days I'll take the time to do the Apple stuff. I just haven't done it. Not a big deal. It'll be fine. All right, so let's get into it. Lord, thank you for this time. Thank you. Thank you for your revelation. Thank you for your word and new insights. I love to learn, and I know you love that about me, and that my willingness to just dive deep when you when you show me things. So I'm so thankful for my brain and my love for learning, and that you meet me in that. In Psalms 139, 23 and 24, I've been praying this over my life, and I encourage the ones that are listening to start praying it over your life too. His word does not come back void. So in Psalms 139, 23 and 24, it says, God, I invert, oh my gosh. Oh, loose my tongue right now in the name of Jesus. God, I invite your searching gaze into my heart. Examine me through and through. Find out everything that may be hidden within me. Put me to the test and sift through all my anxious cares. See if there's any path of pain I'm walking on, and lead me back to your glorious everlasting ways. The path that brings me back to you. Lead me back to your glorious everlasting ways. See if there's any path of pain I'm walking on. We're going to be talking about that today. Lord, I offer myself as a living sacrifice, and I encourage the ones that are listening to do the same. Your will, not mine, be done. Your will, not ours, be done. Your will, not mine, be done. That does not mean that you do not care about the desires of our heart. As we get closer to you, those desires become your heart. They become the desires of your heart. Let us be like putty in your hands, where obedience, surrender, and submission are acts of worship and done out of love and not done out of religious obligation. Good morning. All right. Hi. Okay. So today we're talking about Psalms 23. We are in a 2-week study of just Psalms 23. And I'm telling you, wow, it has been so rich. And we're only on day 3. So we're right now we're looking at Psalm 23:3. All right. So we're on day 3. We're going to do it. I'm really excited about this because it has been an amazing study so far. We're just on day 3. And I think we might have to stop here for a minute. We only have 6 verses in Psalms 23. So I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen tomorrow, but the amount of studying I went into today was absolutely amazing. So, has anyone ever done a study just on Psalms 23, but especially Psalms 23:3? So, let me read it for you. In the Passion Translation, it says this: That's where he restores and revives my life. He opens before me pathways to God's pleasure and leads me along in his footsteps of righteousness so that I can bring honor to his name. All right. So let's back it up just a second. And we are again in Psalm 23. I want to go back to verse 1. We're not going to read the entire chapter here, but I do want to read up to verse 3. All right? So the first verse we talked about, the Lord is my best friend and my shepherd. I always have more than enough. We talked about what does it even look like as a best friend? What does it look like? Well, he encourages you and he encourages you and he sees things in you that you don't see. But as best friend, like as a best friend, you trust him that when he says something, right? That he means it, because if you look at this and you actually are like in relationship with Abba Father and like learning not just Abba Father but like as the Trinity, you're learning his character and you're trusting that in your life. The Lord is my best friend. He becomes a best friend. So he encourages, he sees things in you that you don't see, but you trust that he's not wrong. So you start leaning in, right? And then my shepherd. So he leads us. So he not only encourages us, builds us up, edifies us, he leads us, right? I always have more than enough because he's leading and I'm following and he knows where we're going. I don't. He offers a resting place for me and his luxurious love. So we talked about this yesterday. If you're just tuning into me, I do have a podcast. You can go back and listen to these on my podcast called Rise and Shine with Celeste. So he offers a resting place for me in his luxurious love. We talked about the vision he gave me last year of a waterfall. We talked about when it says offers, it means we have the choice to accept. And who else struggles with when something like that is offered, like the person has been nice and accommodating and they're building you up and all these things, and then they're like, here, have something to eat and drink, and just offers a luxurious place to like come in and just be, and who else has issues maybe a little bit with like, i have to I have to pay for this somehow. Like, I need to get up and clean. I need to get up and cook. I need to repay this person for such kindness, right? He offers a resting place. It's up to me to accept the resting place. His tracks take me to an oasis of peace, the quiet brook of bliss. His oasis, his tracks. I want y'all to hear that. His tracks, okay? His tracks take me to an oasis of peace, the quiet brook of bliss. Now we're on verse 3. That's where he restores and revives my life. He opens before me pathways to God's pleasure and leads me along in his footsteps of righteousness so that I can bring honor to his name. I want to talk about what this means, all right? So it wasn't just this version that talks about, well, this is what started the whole study this morning, actually, was when I looked at, because, okay, let me just preface this to say, I keep speaking Psalm 139 over my life, and I'm encouraging y'all to do the same thing. And it says in there, if there is a path of pain I'm walking on, like, tell me, expose it, sift through my anxious cares, see if there's any path of pain I'm walking on, and lead me back to your glorious everlasting ways. So in Psalm 23:3, it says, lead me along in his footsteps of righteousness so that I can bring honor to his name. Do y'all realize David was a shepherd? He's talking about shepherding here, okay? And in Psalm 23, instead of just paths of righteousness, it is actually implied because of the text of the day and the way that people spoke in this time that this was written, it's circular paths of righteousness. This was actually referring to The deep ruts, the paths that shepherds would make around the hillsides in Israel to get around the hill or around the mountain safely. Safer than like going straight up and not just going straight up and over. It would have killed the flock, most of them at least, right? And so this is what it's talking about, circular paths of righteousness. Well, God is so good like this, okay? So I don't know if y'all have ever seen the ruts from the Oregon Trail. So Eric and I had the well, okay, so 4 years ago, I believe. I think it was, yes, I believe it was like September of 2020. Eric and I, for our anniversary, so our anniversary was yesterday. We were married 19 years ago yesterday. So on September 10th, all right? So in 2020 for our anniversary trip, we usually try to take an anniversary trip. Well, it's been to this year. This year we just really don't have the money, we don't have the time. I do go live every day, but I'm also a business owner. And so through the Soul Sister Project and stuff, I have projects going on through that. And I have other things in the work, and we just didn't have time to do that this year. But in 2020, we went to Wyoming. See, Wyoming was one of the only states open at the time, I believe. And it wasn't even as open as like South Dakota. So in July of 2020, we actually went to South Dakota with the girls, and we absolutely fell in love with that area. Y'all, it's beautiful. Have you been to South Dakota? We were up in the Black Hills. We stayed right outside of where did we stay? Right outside of Deadwood. Like we weren't okay, so we actually stayed right outside of the Black Hills. Okay, so we were kind of in the open area. We could kind of see, but then like 7 miles from where we were staying was Deadwood, and it was the right smack dab in the middle of the forest, Black Hills, and it was absolutely beautiful. We saw Mount Rushmore, and we went to Devil's Tower. Like it was absolutely gorgeous. I had never been that far north, and so we went there, we fell in love with the area. And Montana is beautiful. Yes, it is. I don't know, have we been to Montana? Maybe we haven't. I'm looking forward to going to Montana. Montana has Glacier National Park, doesn't it, Susan? That I want to see that. So that was another thing too that opened up this whole thing. So in 2020 we bought or it might have been, was it 2020 that we bought the RV? I don't remember. It might have been 2021. So we went on this trip in July of 2020, and then we went back up to that same area. So we went to Devil's Tower and into Wyoming, and for our anniversary we decided we wanted to go up into like stay around like Laramie and Cody and stuff like that. And just okay, yes, Susan, that's where I want to go, is Glacier. And so we just we did the rounds in 2020. And what the picture that came up for me when it talks about Psalm 23:3 here. Okay. So we're talking about Psalm 23:3, and it says, leads me along in his footsteps of righteousness so that I can bring honor to his name. Okay. So we're talking about that. But the actual wording in like the Hebraic, right, meaning of passive righteousness actually goes back to the circular paths of righteousness that shepherds would make for their flock. Okay. So we're talking about the circular paths up the hills and the mountains to get around, because you can't go up and over and have a flock left. That would kill not just like the flock, that could kill the shepherd. You circularly, like you go around it. You don't go up and over it. And we see that even, in Colorado, you see this displayed in highways and byways. And wagon ruts. So in 2020, we went back up to Wyoming. And so when I was looking at this, leads me along his footpaths of righteousness. And then it brought me into this this vision of these shepherds making these ruts and these paths and stuff like that. But here's the thing about that is that the ruts and the paths that they are talking about, these safe pathways around the mountain for the flock, that the shepherd leads the flock through, the safe pathways were more than likely brought on or like made by generations before. So we're not just talking about paths of righteousness that he's leading us on, right? We're talking about the legacies and like the generations when we're looking at the physical manifestation of what this is talking about. Again, this is David. See, his background was shepherding. He understood what it looked like to be a shepherd, and he found God in that imagery. And it's so amazing to think about this stuff. So let me show y'all. I can't show on the other app, but I can show over here. Let me show y'all what I'm talking about. If you've never have, I would love to know in the comments if you've seen the Oregon Trail in real life. You know, as a 1982 baby, we played the Oregon Trail a lot, you know. All of us have died from dysentery, yes. Just in the name of Jesus, I don't even come into agreement with that. But it's funny. We've all played that if you were born in the 80s. I don't know about the 90s kids, but we played the Oregon Trail a lot. We always had to get our, yeah, anyways, so if you've never I have not only on the video game. No, but I remember doing that in school. Yep. Okay. So I played the Oregon Trail, but I had never seen it in my life. So I want to just blow your mind for just a second. So while we were in Wyoming in 2020, Eric and I, we were just driving around. This was not planned. All right. But we saw a sign on the side of the road and we said, we're going to follow that. We couldn't see anything else anyways. If y'all remember in 2020, the western half of the United States was on fire and cloud of smoke. And so we couldn't see the beautiful surroundings, but we saw the sign and we're like, yes, let's go do that. All right, let's see if the actual picture will. I don't know why it's like really small, and let me see if I can blow it up for just a second. I'm going to go over here. This is the welcome to my life. Hold on. Okay. So this is the Oregon Trail, and this is made by pioneers, people that went before us and paved a way for us. Right. And I couldn't even imagine what kind of, tenacity, what kind of grit or anything like that. I'm going to have to just leave it like it is. Any kind of like anything like that. It would take, right, for somebody to go through. What about the first one? I mean, what can we just talk about that? Like who and how many wagons went through here? Y'all, you can see along the sides of this rock how it is cut, and you can see that the wheels of the wagon would literally scrape against the side. And then even on the sides here, on each side over here, that's where the wagons were. And this is the footpath in the middle. This is limestone. Y'all, limestone. Uh, could you imagine being that person? Those people. And then on top of it, we all know because we are 80s babies what the Oregon Trail does to you. I mean, you are like in the epitome of danger. Stranger danger. Like, these people are not to be trusted. Um, stranger danger. But can you imagine the call that God put on these people's lives? So that's where I wanted to go today. We're talking about paths of righteousness, all right, that you find in Psalm 23:3. But we're not just talking about paths of righteousness, we're talking about legacy. We're not just talking about our paths of righteousness. We're not talking about Him just leading us and that it just involves us, because it doesn't. Everything that God does is not just for you, it is for like the many, right? But there's promises that happen when you have a relationship with God, when you do follow Him and you absolutely start walking in the footsteps of His righteousness. You start taking the paths that He forged ahead. And sometimes it looks like, oh, you're not on replay, Candace. You're on live. Hi, I'm late. Sometimes it looks like you're going in circles. Paths of righteousness were referring to the paths around the mountain that shepherds forged. The shepherds forged for their flocks, but not just for their flocks. It wasn't just for their flocks, it was for their son and their son's son and the generations that came after that. It was legacy. These paths were being forged. They were taking and building resilience. They were paving the way. They were making the ruts for a safe trip for their generations later, right? Is anybody else is anyone else just mind blown? Good morning, good morning. Mind blown by this. Let me again show you the wagon ruts I'm talking about. But y'all, David is talking about paths of righteousness in the hills and mountains of Israel that the shepherds forged. And we're talking forged by just walking, building the resilience, doing the thing. This is wagon ruts that Eric and I actually stumbled upon on our anniversary trip in 2020. This was in the hills of, I want to say actually, no, it was Wyoming. We were in Wyoming. I don't remember where. This literally was probably about a half a mile from a school, an elementary school. Okay. And Eric and I laughed about that as we were driving away. I'm like, these kids have no idea how cool it is that they live and go to school and stuff like that close to the Oregon Trail. Like, they are that close to history. But I want to actually, like, it didn't dawn on me even probably then. And it's more so as I really seek the Lord in all of this and stuff like that, that when I look at like legacy and I look at history and things like that, we don't have to live a half a mile from the Oregon Trail. Well, at least for me, for my family, we don't have to live a half a mile from the Oregon Trail to experience history. Eric is literally living on the land that his great great grandfather, I believe. I don't know. What is four generation? Eric is the fourth generation. So great grandfather broke out. And here's the thing about that. It doesn't sound like that many. It doesn't sound like that many, but okay, me and Eric, we live and our children, we live in the last frontier of Texas. We are the last founded county in Texas. We're only 100 years old. And Eric's great grandfather came and broke out land 100 years ago. There were no roads. There were, like, I mean, we still had, Native Americans in this area, um, and it's not saying that that was a bad thing. I honestly wish they hadn't eradicated that history from this area, but that's like we're 100 years into this, and Eric's family settled and broke out this land. They literally would drive through prairie grass to get to, like, towns. Okay, drive in vehicles. Drive in vehicles, okay? I believe his grandmother no, his great-grandmother was, in labor. Of course, this is the I talked about this a little bit yesterday too, about, like, the goats. They, like, they wait until the coldest week of the year to give birth. Well, his great-grandmother was in labor, and it was like a blizzard. Yes, we do get snow where we live, even in Texas. Like, we live in the northern kinda not northern part of the Panhandle, but we're at the southern tip of the Texas Panhandle. So I don't know if anybody even understands what that means unless you kind of live in this area. But anyways, it was like a blizzard condition and she was in labor and they had to take a tractor with her, like they loaded her up in the tractor. And we're talking this tractor probably if it had a cab on it, meaning it had a roof and it might have just had a roof and no windows kind of thing. Like we're talking, all right. They had to take a tractor to the nearest house to help to have somebody help birth this baby. All right. They have a midwife. Um, yeah, that is the kind of tenacity, resilience that my husband comes he comes from a really tenacious and very stubborn line, but see, God can take even our stubbornness and turn it for his good, right? See, stubbornness is just sometimes it looks like, I'm putting my head down and I'm going to forge, but sometimes that stubbornness can put us on a path of pain, like Psalms 139 talks about. But see, God wants to restore these things. He puts us on paths of righteousness, and it might look like circular paths. It might look like you're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. But God keeps saying, keep going. Because I can guarantee you when let's talk about just Eric and the legacy and the farming. We're talking about shepherds providing a stable path for not just their flock that they are tending to. We're talking about shepherds forging a path for their son's son, and the generations to come. And it reminded me of the Oregon Trail and the pioneers and essentially Eric's family. We are not that far removed from Eric's the line of Eric's family that settled and pioneered an area. And that not many people can say that. It is something very, very different than most of us experience. I'm not very far from the pioneers of my family, and I understand that. In the western part of the United States, those third and fourth generation, even probably maybe fifth, sixth, there's some legacies still being like the decisions that those pioneers made. We get to sit and be blessed by their resilience, their tenacity, their courage, their willingness to forge a way, right? What happens when we take what we see in the physical as pioneers, as people that we can, does anyone else can you remember Or have you heard the stories of the ones that came before you? Are you living in an area that was settled by your family? Some of us are transplants, and that's okay. But what like I need it's the pioneers. It's the ones that paved the way and it was just absolutely mind-blowing when I saw these wagon ruts for the Oregon Trail and the willingness to travel that terrain, y'all. The willingness to travel that terrain, knowing that you might be met with people that don't like you. They hate you actually. Illness, starvation, dehydration, all those things, right? But hearing the call and doing it anyway. See, that's the kind of tenacity that our walk requires sometimes. Hearing the call and doing it anyway. And sometimes it looks like circular paths. But see what looks like a circular path becomes the way around. In our humanness, we want to go up and over and be done with it. I see it all the time, especially in like let's just go back to my husband for a second, okay? He sees a problem and it's like he has to have this ingenuitive way to fix it that, it's the quickest, fastest, easiest. Anyone else like this? Quickest, fastest, easiest route to get over as much in as little amount of time. And that's the farmer in him, especially the fourth generation farmer who has not just 300 acres that, the pioneer settled. Now we have, close to 4,000. And so we do have to look at what is the quickest, easiest way to do as much as possible in a little amount of time because we don't have the manpower, right? We have tractor and two guys to get over 4,000 acres or whatever it is that they need to do at that time. It's not usually 4,000 acres at one time. Okay. I'm just saying, it is, but it's broken down. Okay. But I'm just saying this is the farmer and it might be the man, right? That's how men think, like this ingenuity. They have to conquer, right? It's their conquer brain. Um, no. And the solution is not always the best outcome. And the thing is too, is that he has to have not just like this ingenuitive way and like reinvent the wheel kind of thinking. It's that, how fast, how much, and like how little of time it's going to take. But it's also every step has to be planned before you take action. And see, God's not like that. I can just imagine in these shepherding moments, okay? So we're going back to Psalm 23, 3. He opens before me pathways to God's pleasure and leads me along in his footsteps of righteousness so that I can bring honor to his name. Just put yourself in a shepherd, like a human shepherd's point of view, bringing your young son the first time. That son has not walked that pathway before. Not in the sense of being a son of the shepherd. He might have been like papoosed onto his mother's back if she was making a trip with the husband. See, women stay home and tend to the tent. Men go out and walk the paths with the flock, right? So the son might have never been on that path before. He has to rely solely on his willingness to follow his father and in his father's footsteps. He doesn't know what the outcome is, yet he's still following. And it's in our walk that we have to do that, but it's in the physical sometimes too. God asks us to do things that might look circular, going like you look like you're making circular movements, but you're actually, getting around the mountain. And sometimes they zigzag up because the grass is really good up there and they zigzag down. And those are the hillsides, right? Up and zigzag down because they have to zigzag down to get to the water because the water's not up there, but the grass is. God knows what he's doing, and it might look like circular movements. It might look like a circular path that he's putting you on. I've even been thinking about like in times past for me, it looks like I'm going in circular movements and I will stop, turn around and go down in my own like entrepreneurial journey. All right, let's just go there, okay? God's called me into entrepreneurship a dozen years ago, and it's been up and I go back down. And then up and I go back down. And it's not even like I walk back. Sometimes I come tumbling down because I have solely relied on, anyways. So we can get into that another day. I'm sure it'll be unfolding as I like, anyways. But as I have learned to follow the shepherd, as I'm following the shepherd, and even if it looks like I'm going in circular movements and in times past, what I am experiencing right now, which is not much of a return on my investment, which is not just financially invested. We're talking time, energy, support, talking to women, Zoom calls, lots of hours, loving on his daughters. And what people want is that security and finances. And what I'm seeking, I would love, Lord, let it like, but only in your timing. What I'm seeking is him. Because I know he knows the path and I don't. Eric is a 4th generation farmer. He might farm a little differently than his great-grandfather started out as, but he's still farming. It is a legacy. God puts us on paths of righteousness, and it's not just for our own good that we follow him. In Deuteronomy, it promises us if we follow in his footsteps, in his ways, in his goodness, following him, loving others, learning to love ourselves, all the messy stuff. It promises us that the blessings go for 1,000 generations. We are the 4th generation on this farm. I don't know what it looks like even in the next generation and what that looks like because we have daughters. What we're praying for are that we can bless our daughters and son-in-laws, right? In the way that Eric's been blessed and that generation can. But I don't know if that legacy lasts or if it ends with us, but the legacy that we provide in the spiritual lasts for 1,000 generations. 1,000. Do y'all know how many generations have gone from Adam until now? If you look at biblical like genealogy. Okay, I need y'all to hear this. 1,000 generations. This is the promise of God in Deuteronomy 5:33. Walk in obedience. Walk in obedience. We're talking about the path of righteousness. Walk in obedience to all that the Lord your God has commanded you. And we're talking the greatest commandments, okay? I'm not going through the 10 commandments. I'm talking about the ones that the gospel talks about. And yes, the 10 commandments get encapsulated in these greatest commandments from Jesus. Love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love others. Greatest commandment. Love God with everything, all of your being. Second, love others. But in that first, you learn to love yourself the way God loves you too. You learn how to love because you are loved. We love because he first loved us, okay? So, but in Deuteronomy 5:33 this says, "Walk in obedience, walk in obedience, walk in obedience. He leads us on paths of righteousness. Walk in obedience to all that the Lord your God has commanded you, so that you may live and prosper and prolong your days." Okay? So it's talking about that, these are the promises that happen if you walk in as he commands you. He has a plan for you and a future and plans to prosper you, but that doesn't always mean financially. It can turn into that. But, and do you steward it well? Do you remember who blessed you in that? All right. So that you may live and prosper and prolong your days in the land that you will possess. And then it goes on to say in 533 or 34, hold on, let me pull it up. I didn't put it in my notes. There it is. Sorry, guys. Give me just a second. In 530, oh, I guess it's in the next chapter, Deuteronomy 6. I didn't put it in my notes. I was just reading. Yeah, okay. So this is, I believe it is in Deuteronomy 6. I don't even know where I saw it, y'all. But it is about the 1,000 generations. The generations that have all of my being. Yes. Amen. The generations, biblical time, all the way back to Adam. There's been no more than 104, maybe 105 now. No more than 104, maybe 105. Do you hear me? His promises. You walk in righteousness, I will bless the generations, 1,000 generations. This means it's eternal. It's eternal. He put it as 1,000 generations so that we, in our finite thinking, could put a number on it. But he was looking at eternity. And he provided a way for us to do that through Jesus. He provided a way for us to literally have relationship with him, to literally get to know his heart, to understand and trust in him so that we do allow him to lead us on these path of righteousness instead of thinking we have to be ingenuitive and figure it out and have all the steps in place before we can take a step. He says, just follow me. I know the way because I have been that way 1,000 times. I have absolutely forged a way for you. Let me remind you what that looks like. And this was only a couple of generations of people walking and pioneering and all. This is the Oregon Trail. This was a little snippet of it in Wyoming that my husband and I found. The Oregon Trail. This is what paving the way looks like. But we're daughters of the King. He's paved the way for us. He knows the way. Why are we not trusting him? Because see, this looks a whole lot easier to walk than if you were to get up on those rocks. You can see the bluffs above. And could you imagine coming to the edge of a bluff and not having any way down? Okay. But yet God's like, I know the way. Let me show you. And it might look like you're walking in circles, but just keep following me. And it might look like the valley of death, but keep walking with me. I know the way. Put your forehead to my shoulder blades and just walk. I will fear no evil. All right, so I'm getting ahead of myself in Psalm 23. Y'all, walk in Hebrew means to go, walk, live in a particular way. It implies not just physical movement, but also a way of life aligned with God's will. All right. So let me ask you a question. I'm going to leave you with this today. What legacy do you want to leave behind for future generations? How can you intentionally walk in righteousness to ensure that your life bears fruit for years to come? Sometimes it doesn't look like the rosy, like the rose colored glasses that, Christianese stuff, that Christian life stuff, um, likes to put the rosy, like oh, he loves me, because he does love you. But see, we're human and it's hard sometimes, and life is lifing sometimes. And what legacy do you want to leave behind for future generations? Is it one of getting in line with what religion or the church says and you living that out as your legacy? Or does it mean going on an adventure and knowing that whatever he says, that he knows the way that has been forged ahead, that all you have to do is love him and you'll learn to love others, that all you have to do is give him your yes and let him show you, even if it looks unconventional? What legacy do you want to leave behind for future generations? And how can you intentionally walk in righteousness to ensure that your life bears fruit for years to come? Sometimes it doesn't look like this, throwing caution to the wind and starting something completely like off the wall. Sometimes it looks like that, but it takes time walking in that. Sometimes it looks like, Lord, I release my marriage to you. I don't know how else to go. Like I just can't go any further. I talked about that yesterday. What legacy? Thank you. Yeah, Susan. I just kept reading and reading and reading. I couldn't remember where it was at. For 1,000 generations, which those who love him and keep his commandments. Yeah. The legacy we are leaving our children and our children's children and our children's children's. Like, what do we get to do? Where I can guarantee you a lot of us are the cycle breakers in our generation. We're the cycle breakers in our legacy. Be the cycle breaker. Know that the path has been forged ahead, but sometimes it was not by your biological, it's by God himself. Right? All right. Let me show you who our Jesus is. He's so beautiful and he loves you. He absolutely loves you. Oh my goodness. He delights in you. He sings over you. He leads you along paths of righteousness. He forged the way for you. He sacrificed himself so that you could have a relationship with God the Father, so that you can know truly how loved you are. When he offers that love, when he offers that rest, when he offers a resting place in luxurious love, do you accept it? When he tells you to move and walk in my ways and let me lead you on the path of righteousness that I have set before you, do you go with him? I'm not saying any of this as a condemnation. If shame or a trigger of shame is coming up in your life, speak it out. Shine the light on it. Shame is not a characteristic of God. It is a byproduct of sin. So if you see shame in your life or feel shame or whatever, when you hear, let me lead you on my paths of righteousness. What is it that you need to surrender? If you're feeling shame, loose me and let me go in the name of Jesus. You are not part of the character of God. Lord, show me. In Psalms 32, 8 and 9, I hear the Lord saying, I will stay close to you, instructing and guiding you along the pathway for your life. I will advise you along the way and lead you forth with my eyes as your guide. Don't make it difficult. Don't be stubborn when I take you where you've not been before. Don't make me tug you and pull you along. Just come with me. All right, y'all. I'll see you tomorrow.